Well, to our female panel, I'm not sure they'd sponsor those hairdos. Tanya Plibersek, one of our regulars and former deputy leader of the Labor Party, and now in all the debate about Anthony Albanese, the most favoured Labor figure to replace him. And Sen Fierravanti-Wells, who's been a senator for New South Wales since 2005, born in Wollongong, and to be fair to her, one of the first federal politicians to alert Australians to the expansionist disposition of the Chinese government in the Pacific. My thanks to you both for your time. Tanya, I must come to you first because I invited you onto this program on Monday night to debate Craig Kelly on things like hydroxychloroquine and vaccination, as is your entitlement. And I said on Monday night, you courteously declined. But you had called him a nong and guilty of misinformation. Have a look at this headline here from the Herald Sun newspaper of Tuesday of this week. And there it says in the headline, I think we're getting it up here in a minute. See, I hope we do. Anyway, the headline from the Herald Sun said, senior doctors across Melbourne have formed an alliance and are urging health officials to consider the use of two drugs which they say can cure coronavirus. Now, I think the editorial byline, cure coronavirus, is not what the doctors were saying, not what Craig Kelly was saying. But further on, one of the many doctors, Dr. Eamon Matheson, is quoted in the story as saying, quote, the evidence in favour of the efficacy and safety of the treatment options for the management of the early phase of COVID-19 illness are now considered by many Australian and international medical experts, including the esteemed Professor Robert Clancy, to virtually be beyond dispute. Now, Tanya, Craig Kelly has given these doctors the confidence to speak out. Can I ask you, is Harvey Risch, a professor of epidemiology at Yale University, is he dealing in misinformation when he says, and I quote, hydroxychloroquine is effective in the treatment of coronavirus if given in the early infectious stage to outpatients? And the American Journal of Medicine published a peer-reviewed paper authored by 20 doctors. Its lead author, Dr. Peter McCulloch, said, quote, I'm confident that HCQ is safe and effective. It can be used as the base in the treatment for COVID-19 in the early ambulatory phases. Tanya, question to you. Are they nongs and guilty of misinformation?
Alan, I'm going to take my advice from our Therapeutic Goods Administration, from our Health Minister, from our Prime Minister, from the Clinical Evidence Task Force, which is a collection of our most distinguished professionals and organisations, health organisations. And the weight of their evidence is that these treatments aren't effective. So I'm going to go with the bulk of medical and scientific advice here.
But Tanya, this is the American Journal of Medicine. The American Journal of Medicine.
Yeah, I'm not.
The American Journal of Medicine.
I'm not dismissing or disrespecting. Yes, but we've also got our own Therapeutic Goods Administration and our own clinical evidence evaluation task force, which are our most distinguished health professionals across Australia. And I'm going to stick with them.
Yeah, well,
their advice might change over time.
I'm sticking with the scientists too. I'm simply saying we should, Craig Kelly is saying, put all of these opinions on the table. And that's not happening. Craig Kelly's not a nong for alerting us to these opinions. Conchetta, could I come to you? Has the Morrison government and its various lickspittles pulled the wrong rein in seeking to silence Craig Kelly? I mean, there were thousands of comments on my Facebook page. Tony said, Craig Kelly is one of the few decent and honest politicians in Canberra today. Of course, being a Conservative means you become a target for all of the lefty media types. And Robert said, I'm disappointed with Morrison. Stopping people from speaking out is not on. Now, he has merely quoted experts from all over the world, which I have done. I mean, you can't beat Yale, Stanford and Oxford University. Don't they count? Conchetta.
Well, Alan, this is a very complex issue and it's a very difficult issue. And whether it's the opinion of Professor Clancy or other professors, there are different views. The important point, I think, Alan, here is that in any debate, whether it's about medicine or science or climate or anything, there has to be contestability, and there has to be contestability of ideas.
Definitely.
And so, therefore, different people, different experts are able to put their point of view and debate this issue and come out with what is the best possible issue. And I'm sure, and I would hope that our medical authorities are all cognizant of the diversity of views, and so that, you know, contestability is...
Well, let me take that word, Conchetta. Tanya, just a quick one, because I want to come on to a couple of other things here. But on contestability, we're virtually being all told to toe the line. And you've actually said that. Well, I'll take what the Prime Minister said. I'll take what the Health Minister said. I'll take what Professor Murphy says. Where is the contestability of his view against the views from Yale and Stanford and Harvard and a whole stack of them from around the world? There is no contestability.
Alan, you know what? There were always doctors who would say that smoking was healthy for you. I chose to believe the vast bulk of medical evidence that smoking kills you.
Tanya, that's called a red herring.
You'll always find someone...
Tanya,
you will always find someone who is prepared to say X, Y, Z that goes against mainstream
when a professor of epidemiology, when a professor of epidemiology, I'm sorry, at Yale says hydroxychloroquine is effective in the treatment of coronavirus if given in the early infectious stage to outpatients, and Craig Kelly is told to shut up. There's no contestability there. But look, enough of that. On a related subject, to come to you first, Tanya, the distinguished epidemiologist and University of New South Wales academic, whom I know you know, Mary Louise McLaws, has said this week that vaccines are not a silver bullet and that Australia would have to roll out as many as 190,000 injections a day to achieve herd immunity, and that we'd have to vaccinate at least 90 to 95% if we were covering a variant of concern. Now, firstly, I'm saying people should be vaccinated. That's my view. But a poll has said that only 75% of voters have said they'll be vaccinated. Now, again, the point that Craig Kelly was rightly making was France, Germany, Sweden and Poland are saying that the AstraZeneca vaccine should only be used for people under 65. The French President Macron says it is quasi-ineffective on people over 65, but we've ordered 3.8 million doses of this and 50 million to be produced at the Commonwealth Serum Laboratory. What are the people watching us meant to make of all of this?
Well, Alan, you know, it's very clear that I'm very much in favour of the vaccination program, but that shouldn't stop us asking some questions like, did we put all our eggs in one basket? Will we stick to the timeline? The government said they want to see 4 million people vaccinated by the end of March. Are we, you know, at the head of the queue, we were told, the head of the queue internationally to get the most effective medicines? And then some practical things like, how will people get it? So far, it seems only 2,000 GPs have registered to provide it. These are questions that are all very worth asking.
And we should be we're debating it here now. We're talking about it here now, but it's not discussed anywhere else. I mean, Conchetta, Pfizer say they'll have progressive graduated shipments of 80,000 in the next month. So I would have thought that for AstraZeneca, and Tanya is right there, she's saying, well, we don't quite know whether this stuff can be delivered. For AstraZeneca and Pfizer, there must be uncertainty about arrival. Isn't this the point? The public aren't being told all this.
Well, Alan, we have agreements to purchase the amount of vaccine, 125 million doses, and also an additional 26 million under an international COVAX agreement. The reality is that we are relying on CSL, and CSL is an experienced manufacturer of vaccines in Australia. The Commonwealth Serum Laboratories to deliver the AstraZeneca vaccine in Australia. So we are relying on CSL and we have a program, and indeed only yesterday Greg Hunt indicated to us the program for the rollout of the vaccination and how that was going to happen.
Conchetta, I'll just come back to the point about Macron. President Macron says AstraZeneca is quasi-ineffective for people over the age of 65. Now, Moderna and Pfizer are allegedly the most effective, but Tanya, we haven't been able to reach a deal with Moderna over the supply of that vaccine, and the federal government hasn't disclosed the reasons. Should it?
Well, I think it's certainly worth interrogating, Alan, why we're going with a particular vaccine and I guess really doubling down on one or two vaccines rather than looking at all of the vaccines that are available. I think it really is up to the government to explain some of the decision making here.
Yeah, but we've got a
also the
$24 million.
practicalities. Like,
We've got a $24 million advertising
GPs
campaign.
Don't know.
We've got a $24 million advertising campaign.
You don't need to advertise to me. I'm happy to take it. I'd like to know where I can get it, when I'll get it, which vaccine it'll be.
But
I think it would be good to know the details. And
I agree. That's my concern. Conchetta, AstraZeneca has very little experience in vaccines. It has a very small role in global pharmaceuticals. Vaccine production is not one of their core competencies. So we are relying on these companies. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well,
are we going to...
Alan, we are relying on CSL, and CSL is going to roll out the vaccine for us. Sorry, to go back to your previous point in relation to the Pfizer and Moderna, my understanding is that the discussions with Moderna are commercially in confidence. So that's the reason why I understand.
Yeah, but we can't do a deal with Moderna and they say it's an effective vaccine.
But
I come back to the point about Macron, who's not a fool. He's a scholar, and he says that it's quasi-ineffective AstraZeneca. Now, I think the whole of Australian people should be told these things. And if we've got a $24 million advertising campaign, I'm not too sure what we're advertising.
Well, Alan, can I just say, my understanding is that the World Health instructions and the World Health recommendation is that the AstraZeneca vaccine can be given to all people, including the over 65s, and that's the recommendation that's been made by the World Health authorities.
All right. Tanya, thank you for your time. See you next week. And Conchetta, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time as well.
Pleasure.
Back after the break.